One author believes that laws that force landlords to accept Section 8 tenants actually hurt the tenants by driving small mom and pop landlords out of the business. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. So I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over a topic that I've talked about a lot, and that's these laws that force landlords to accept tenants with Section 8 vouchers. Now, I'm 100% against these laws. I believe that the property owner should have the right to choose who they accept and who they don't accept, especially when it comes to dealing with government vouchers, okay? When you're talking about dealing with the Section 8 program, you're talking about dealing with inspections, making a lot of unnecessary repairs, having to jump through additional hoops, and having to wait possibly in order to receive your rental payment, okay? And a lot of cases, the Section 8 program does not pay market rates on top of that. So yeah, a lot of landlords are gonna be like, hey, I don't wanna deal with this program. Oh, excuse me. And you know what? The tenants, they only make things worse in some cases, because a lot of these tenants are, rock bottom, not the kind of people that you want up in your property. So a lot of these states are passing these laws saying, hey, landlords have to take these tenants. They have to accept these vouchers, even if they don't want to participate in the program. And a lot of landlords, they're saying, okay, we might not say outright that we're not accepting these vouchers, but we're still going to reject them because this does not work for us. And that's just the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that you're not going to ever be able to force people to do anything they don't want to do. It's just a fact. It's a simple fact. And they would rather go out of business, say, hey, I'm not going to rent my property at all, than deal with a lot of these problems. And you know what? That is not good for the tenants, because you know what? Landlords that previously were offering affordable housing are going to say, hey, I don't want to offer any housing at all. So what do you think? Do you think it's a good idea to force landlords to accept these vouchers? Do you think it's actually going to affect the number of housing units available out there? I know it might not be a large number, right? But even if it's 5%, we're already in a housing shortage. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think, okay? Leave a comment saying if you think this will actually hurt the housing market and hurt the tenants themselves, because you know what? I think it will. I really do think that a lot of tenants are hurting themselves by trying to force the issue. And yeah, it's going to be harder. It's going to be harder mostly because the bureaucracy has made a lot of landlords just not want to deal with or trust the program. So anyway, let's get into this article, see what this author says. This author is pro-landlord, so I'm all for him, okay? So let's get into it. This article is coming from Route50.com, and it says, why income discrimination laws hurt poor renters. All right. Laws that ban discrimination against voucher holders can push smaller landlords out of the low-income housing market, decreasing the amount of affordable housing. More cities and states have become concerned with landlords discriminating against people using government housing vouchers. Today, 23 states and more than 100 local governments have source of income, or SOI, discrimination laws on their books, which typically allow renters to sue landlords who refuse to accept some types of payments, most especially vouchers. This year, for example, Kansas City, Missouri passed its own SOI ordinance that bans discrimination against tenants based on the source of their rental income. And you know what? I'm going to give a personal example on this one, right? I invested in Kansas City all the way up until this year. This year, I sold every single rental property that I own in the Kansas City area because these laws are part of the reason. I see the way things are going, and yeah, it wasn't the only factor in me deciding to sell, right? But this is part of the reason. And part of the reason I don't want to invest more money in the Kansas City area is because I see they have a lot of these left-leaning laws and a lot of politicians who are in charge of the city who don't care about property rights, who are trying to attack landlords and making things worse. Now, as of right now, believe me, it is still a very landlord-friendly area, a very landlord-friendly place. But I see the writing on the wall, and I'm getting out while I can, okay? This, like I said, this is just an additional factor that led me to my decision. The desire to protect poor renters is understandable, but there is little reason to believe that SOI laws help them. The research on the benefits of SOI laws is spotty, and the costs they add to landlords renting to the low-income market are substantial. If politicians want to help low-income renters, they should reduce the burdens in the voucher program rather than force more landlords to shoulder them. And this is what I've been talking about for a long time. Reduce the amount of burdens. You know what? Eliminate the inspection immediately. Just get rid of it. Okay, the inspection is garbage. The only time they should inspect a property is if they receive a complaint from the tenant. That's it. Otherwise, just give the landlord the money. That, you know what, that would resolve so many problems that landlords have to deal with. You know, other than that, make sure you get the landlord their money quickly. You know, pay them quickly. Goodness, you know, like if we didn't have to wait so long to get our first check, maybe we would take the vouchers more often as well. You know, I could tell these people this stuff. They won't listen to me. They won't listen to me. And, you know, they're probably required by the feds to do the inspection. But, you know, in my opinion, just getting rid of the inspection alone would resolve a lot of, you know, the hesitancy that a lot of landlords have with the program. Vouchers were introduced in the 1960s as a substitute for traditional public housing programs, whose programs, including spiraling costs and poor government management, were already well known. Soon after, starting with Massachusetts in 1971, states and cities began banning discrimination against voucher holders. These governments treated discrimination against voucher holders as similar to discrimination against people in other categories, such as race or sex. Yeah, and I could tell you all of the stuff that I have read about the original public housing. You know, socialized housing did not work, and it's a lesson about socialism in general when you read about it. I mean, I suggest anybody who is interested in seeing the failings of socialism look into the public housing nonsense, where basically they decided, hey, this doesn't work, we got to shut it down. You know, and I'm not saying that the Section 8 program or them paying vouchers is much better. It's slightly better, but it still has a lot of the same problems, right? And a lot of the problems are due to spiraling costs, right? And also breeding dependence upon a system. So you end up with people who are on these Section 8 vouchers for basically their entire lives. Like, I've been in poverty for 40 years on this voucher. Like, so you've never been able to get out of your financial situation? Like, that's just not reality for people who, you know, in most cases are able to work something out on their own, okay? I mean, even if it means that, hey, my kids graduated high school, you shouldn't have to still be on a voucher after your kids move out, right? Wrong, right? You know, in these people's situation, they are literally dependent on these government vouchers forever. Yeah, that's what the system creates, a bunch of dependents who never can take care of themselves. After decades, little is known about the effectiveness of these laws, except that they have not been a panacea. A 2019 survey from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development found research is mixed on the effectiveness of SOI laws. Some studies show that SOI laws help voucher holders move to better neighborhoods, but as one noted, the effects are modest. This study found less than 1 percentage point decrease in neighborhood poverty rates, and this was limited to the group of existing voucher holders who moved. So basically, there's no studies out there that suggest that these laws actually work. So what do I talk about when I'm, trying to make a decision of if this law is necessary, if this law is actually helping things, I always talk about if it makes housing more affordable by either decreasing the supply or increasing the demand, right? But in this case, you would think that the goal of the Section 8 voucher program would be to help move people up out of poverty, right? May help people get back on their feet after either a rough time or to take care of people who are elderly and disabled and unable to take care of themselves, right? So in moving people out of poverty, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all, okay? Basically, it just kind of keeps them in their current situation, discourages them from wanting to move up and move out because then they lose their voucher and, creates a bunch of dependence, And I'm not saying that the elderly and the disabled don't need the vouchers, right? Because obviously those are the people who won't be able to take care of themselves, but For everyone else, yeah. I mean, what percentage of people on vouchers are elderly and disabled as compared to not elderly and disabled and just, a bunch of, single moms or, you know what I mean? That's the question. Are we really just paying so that a bunch of single moms can have free rent? Is that what we're doing? That's a really important question that we need to answer before we keep throwing money into this program. That's my opinion. Some studies claim that SOI laws increase the ability of local housing authorities to use all the vouchers allotted to them by the federal government that would be lost due to a family's inability to find housing. The problem with this argument is that almost all housing authorities already use all of their vouchers. If one family cannot use a voucher, another one on their long waiting list almost certainly will. For instance, in 2017, the voucher program nationwide used 99.9% of the funded vouchers, meaning just about every voucher issued by the federal government was used. Almost no SOI studies look at the costs of the laws, but they are substantial. Although lawsuits based on income discrimination are less common than any other type of housing laws, they are becoming a bigger issue. New York City itself filed dozens of cases a year, which can sometimes cost landlords tens of thousands of dollars. Washington, D.C. won a $10 million settlement against some real estate firms and individuals based on voucher discrimination. In March, HUD created a website that aims to help people avail themselves of SOI laws and sue their landlords. So yeah, the Department of Housing and Urban Development wants people to sue their landlords over this garbage, What a joke, And I've heard about how New York City is going after landlords for not abiding by their law, which, a lot of people are like, oh, they're going to go after these big landlords. And then, what do I find? I find an article about a case where they go after an individual landlord who owns like one unit. Can you believe this nonsense? This is what happens, okay? Like I said, small mom and pop landlords who otherwise are great landlords get caught up in a web of garbage every time they pass these laws. And these bad landlords, you know what? They're still getting away with it, getting away with breaking the law. And, they don't care. They just don't care. So, yeah, this is why I'm so much against government regulation, because you end up with a bunch of small mom and pop landlords getting caught in the net, and then the city's like, we got you. You guys were screwing over these Section 8 tenants. And you know what the small mom and pop landlord is going to do? They're going to be like, you know what? You did get me. I'll pay my fine, but I'm out of this business. I'm done. I don't want to rent to anybody anymore. And all that means is there's less housing available for those who need it. So anyway, let me know what you think of this whole situation in the comments down below.